Hey guys, welcome to the fifth episode of the Film Section podcast. I'm Chris,
And I'm Mark.
and today we're going to talk about Hell House LLC as the second part of our found footage and our fifth episode in the all-around arcing Halloween season. I guess. I guys, it's not going to be all Halloween. We just happened to start this podcast on our favorite holiday of the year. So it's just what we're doing for now. We're going to get to different movies. Trust me. You're going to be like, where the fuck? I thought these guys were a horror podcast. Nope. Film section, guys. So
Yeah.
we're going to be talking about all kinds of stuff. But right now we are in horror mode. And right now, specifically found footage.
Yeah. Hell of an intro.
Thank you.
So today we are talking about Hell House LLC, which came out in 2015, directed by Stephen Cognetti and written by Stephen Cognetti. And this movie is such a weird sleeper hit in a sense that like so many of like people that I know have seen this movie, and like so many different horror pages and stuff that I'll follow on Facebook or Instagram love this movie and talk about this movie all the time. And it's crazy because I found this movie completely on accident.
Same. I just would. I've had Amazon Prime for years now, so if I couldn't find anything anywhere else, I go to Amazon Prime and go right to like the recently added.
Mm-hmm.
And I happened to be scrolling through the one day, and this popped up, and I'm like, oh, this could be one of those. Like, I gave it a chance, but usually I see a cover like that or a name like that, and I'm like, oh, this is probably a piece of shit. And then I think I watched the trailer that was on there, and I was like, oh, all right, I'm going to give this a shot.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
Very glad I did.
This movie's intense. Like, it's so this movie is about five friends that basically run a haunt called Hell House, where they've done it in different locations for it seems like a couple of years when the movie starts.
Yeah, they were mentioning that they this was their first time out of the city, like New York City, because they were saying they were doing haunts in like Queens and stuff like that. So
Right.
This was their first time doing a haunt out of the city. Yeah.
Right. And they decide to put up Hell House in this infamous Abaddon Hotel. And so essentially it's just these five people setting up this haunt, and as they're setting up the haunt, they realize that the Abaddon Hotel is in fact haunted and has a lot more sinister stuff going on in it than they originally thought. So this movie is a little different from other found footage movies that I've seen, or that I had seen up to that point, where it was a mockumentary, where I really wasn't used to like watching those yet. And so it was really interesting kind of seeing like the actual story play out, but then watching sort of like these intercut interviews with like these actors, obviously.
Yeah.
And for the most part, they're fine. Some of the acting isn't the greatest for the interviews, at least.
Yeah, I found the interview actors to be the least believable. Yeah. I mean, they were there. They did what they were there for. I definitely the acting of the person interviewing the girl as like the wraparound of this was but otherwise pretty good for a movie I never fucking heard of prior.
Oh yeah. And and the acting on our five main characters,
Good.
which is what Alex, Sarah, Paul.
Alex, I
Um,
was running these through my head the whole time that I was watching it. So it was Mac, Alex, Tony, Paul, Sarah.
okay. They're great.
Mm-hmm.
I think their chemistry together is awesome. They're there's at no point am I ever bored of watching these five together, or when they break off into twos, or when it's just one person. Because when it goes to just one of these five people, that's when the really scary shit starts to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So the movie is supposed to take place so these five people go to the Abaddon Hotel over the course of 48 days to set up this haunt. And when it starts, it's pretty, like normal. It's just kind of fun. They're just sort of getting acclimated to the place. But very quickly, you see there are early scares just all over the movie. Like, it's insane how much stuff is hidden in plain sight where the camera doesn't just stop and freeze on it, because it does do that a couple of times.
Yeah.
But the amount of stuff that's just kind of hidden in this movie is really scary.
It kind of starts when they go in that basement and there's like those three, like the two clowns or the clowns or whatever.
Mhm.
It's that there. It's kind of foreboding.
Yeah.
What else? There was the part where the guy's like saying goodnight and there's that shadow in the doorway and he's like,
Mhm.
hey, is that you? Oh, you must be sleepwalking. Like,
Yeah.
that was actually pretty fucking creepy.
That was really creepy. And that was in Paul's room. And Paul, for the majority of the movie, Paul gets a really bad go because Paul's the one that gets scared the most in like that first 30 minutes. When they enter, Paul is actually the one that plays that like piano theme on when like they first go in, that plays actually throughout the entire series. Then is that same piano sound,
which is oddly fantastic
and creepy as hell
for such a simple, like, it's like three notes. Like,
it's super creepy though. Like,
absolutely.
And then I think it's that same night where, as you mentioned, Paul wakes up and he sees a person like standing in his room, and he's like, "Are you sleepwalking? Like, are you okay?" And the person just walks out.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't even see who or what that is because it's just a silhouette with like red lighting behind it.
Well, they just walk away, and then the camera cuts out because it's time for bed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then it's after that part where I think we're only about like 15, 20 minutes into the movie at this point. Mm-hmm. And we start learning a little bit about the history of Abaddon, where it was owned by this man, Andrew Tully, who was sort of trying to start like almost like a death cult in a way.
The way the guy that was being interviewed explained it was that Abaddon stands for demon.
It's a demon, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and that he thought that the hotel was some sort of like portal to hell or something, and that he essentially thought he was Dante.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so it's a real creepy backstory. And then they're like, hey, then eventually they found him hung in the dining room.
And they show the picture of him hanging in the dining room, and I think that's something to say, is that this movie, for the majority, isn't very gruesome or violent or anything like that, but the parts that are, like, they go in.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, like, so after we start learning about Andrew Tully, that's when Paul and everyone else start to kind of notice the clown statues are sort of moving around.
Yeah.
specifically the big bald one that in a lot of the promotion for this movie was used.
Yeah, the creepiest one. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and so it's, so they're setting up, and at this point, it's really only Paul that's kind of noticing that things are like going wrong.
Yeah, everybody thinks he's fucking being a weirdo.
Yeah. And then when I think it's Paul and Tony are trying to do like a setup for a just like a part of the haunt where it's just like a strobe lit hallway.
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah, that part's terrifying because as you're watching on like the found footage, you see what like is kind of lagging strobe lights. And you see like the figures and the creatures and everything just kind of moving around in front of them.
Yeah, the stuff they have set up, but then there's something that's out of place there.
Mm-hmm.
It's real fucked up.
Yeah. And that's one of, to me, that kind of brings me to the point of this movie does a really good job at setting up these really great scares without needing any sort of jump scare noise or really not having any music used throughout this entire movie.
Yeah.
There's no score. It's all just people using these video cameras.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. It was all footage, and it was all like real reactions.
Mm-hmm.
No music. The only music was that piano thing, and they were playing it in one of the scenes, or like the guy was fucking with the piano or whatever. So, it, that hotel was an atmosphere.
Yeah.
You didn't need music. Like they were genuinely putting work in to make it creepy as fuck without music, or the obligatory cat jumping out of the fucking from behind something. Like there was none of that. The scares were all genuine.
Oh yeah. There was no, like, not even one of like the five of them ever tried to like fake scare any of them. Like
No.
It was all just them being scared.
Which is weird because they're like people that were
right
set up haunted houses, and they're not trying to scare each other. But oddly enough, that's what they all think this is every time something happens.
Yeah.
There are weird little things that happen, like one of the days they're outside, and Sarah is like standing in front of that statue and just staring at it. And there was a point they find her staring at a wall, just mumbling shit.
Yeah.
And all that shit is fucking creepy, dude. Like,
well, at what did I write down? So at like about an hour into the film, to me, that's the scariest part of the whole movie, is when Paul is on his bed and he looks by and like he picks up the camera to look behind him, and there's that chick with the white eyes just like staring at him.
Dude, when he had the blankets over his head, I knew what was gonna happen, and I just like kind of was like looking away because I didn't want any part of it. And I've seen this movie 3 times, dude. Times.
It's terrifying. Like, it is legitimately just, and it's the thing of, even though it's coming, it's like, it must have been like the direction, but it's like Paul keeps the sheets over him for just a little too long. Where like that when he lifts up that sheet, that girl's gonna be right there in his face. But
oh my god, yeah, that's it. And they just hold it and hold it and hold it. You're like, just fucking do it already.
Yeah.
That leads us into the next day where they're like, where's Paul? And they explain that, at one of these things they did, he took off for like 2 days or something, missed 2 shows. And then that takes them into the basement where more creepy fucking shit's going on. They do make it a point in this movie when they're talking about those three clowns in the basement, like in the beginning when they found them, they're like, oh, we could do something with these, like, but they don't really move very well, like their heads don't turn and shit. And there's a part where they're down there and freaky shit's happening and the heads turn and they're looking right at the dude and he's like, dude, those heads turned. Well, he's like, oh, what do you mean? And then they come out and the heads are facing straight forward, and then they find Paul
And
sitting
he's
in the
comatose.
yeah, he's just sitting there, not speaking, just out.
Mm-hmm. And when they do find Paul, I do want to say that it's at sort of that point in the movie when my favorite character is Mac, the redheaded guy.
Yeah.
He's my favorite character because he's the only one that is taking the job seriously, but is also like super freaked out by everything and is like trying to believe everyone. And so it's at that point when Paul is like comatose in his bed, and who was it? Like, did you say Tony was one of the other guys?
Yeah.
Him and Alex like get into the argument, and he tries to walk off, and so Mac has to be like, this is what's really happening.
Yeah.
And I think it's the character of Mac is like, if there was going to be a hero of this movie, which there's not,
No.
it would have been him. But it is also sort of at this point where when Mac is sort of trying to take charge that we sort of start to learn through some of these interspliced interviews and everything, where Alex is sort of like influenced by the evil that's inside this hotel. And you can sort of see it a little bit where like his eyes look a little bit darker. His attitude is a little bit more like whatever.
Yeah.
You know? And it's weird because at this point and this is like a kudos to the pacing, but I don't feel like I'm that far into the movie. But you look down and you're already like an hour, like you're already almost done with the movie at this point.
They got to that part where they go down the basement and they find Paul, and I was like, I don't feel like I've been watching this that long. And then I clicked the button and it was like an hour into the movie. I'm like, holy shit. I'm like,
Yeah.
we're almost at the end here. It's crazy.
And so
Really good pacing.
Oh yeah. And so it's then at this point in the movie, after they found Paul, after Mac convinces Tony to stay, that they open the haunt.
Yeah.
And people are going through, people are having a good time until they get to the basement.
Oh. Yeah, where they I think they established early in the movie that they couldn't get any camera down there, like nothing was working down there. So they hired this big dude to dress in the clown costume because they had an actress chained up down there for a part of the haunt. And it was going to be like her pretty much in her bra and underwear, so they wanted somebody to keep an eye on her, make sure nobody goes down there as being an asshole or anything.
Right.
So hello, hi. Oh my goodness, hold on. So get out of here. So then the haunt's going good and well. Everybody's having fun. They're pacing the people out, so people are going in. They're like, want to get them in, get them out. And there's some screaming, and then you just hear like, Joey, where are you going? Why? And then somebody mentions Joey ran out of the basement, which is the guy that was in the clown costume watching the girl, and all you hear is the girl freaking out, saying, "Get me out of here!" Oh, freaking cat! And then we don't immediately get to see what's going on down there because it's just like a stampede, people trying to get out, and they're trying to help these people get out because they're freaking out. So you don't get to see right away what's happening, but something is happening. girl is screaming, "This is not part of the show. Help, help, get me out of here." And then you hear her say, "Joey, where are you going? You have the keys." And then I was just like, "Oh no,
Mm-hmm. And
oh
then,
no."
and then when Joey walks out, it's so interesting because you almost don't notice it at first, but you do see what she's freaking out about, which is these like weird looking figures in like these black shrouds that are just like, showing up all over the Abaddon Hotel.
Yes.
And so they kill her, the actress, and then they, I mean, they start killing more people. And then it seems like anyone that's been inside of this hotel has been affected in some way, because even Joey, the guy in the clown costume who leaves, it said in like a little excerpt that like 10 days later he was found in his hotel room dead, like he killed himself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, like, this movie is super dark, and it has no problem being super dark, because as as we're kind of running around this hotel, and like, people are freaking out, people are emptying out, Sarah and who is it, like Mac, go up into the attic and find Alex hanging himself.
Yeah.
And I will say that it's hard to watch, because it's actually a dude just hanging, like, for a good couple of minutes, like he's struggling.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's yeah, but
It's a real dark. It's a real dark ending, and it's not even really the end. Like,
yeah, there's still more after this. So when the camera falls, and I think it's Mac that gets killed, and he falls, I will say the shot is I don't want to say it's the best shot of the movie, because that sounds terrible, but it's the shot where you just see the shadow, like Alex's shadow, like hanging, and there's like kind of the light peeking through. For a found footage movie, that's a fantastic shot. Sounds so bad, but so then at that point we cut to Sarah, who's kind of been talking and having an interview this whole time. That's kind of been interspliced throughout the movie a little bit. And so it's really, throughout the interview with Sarah, you notice that she's like a little off, kind of, especially from how she was in the beginning of the movie.
Yeah. For me, in the first viewing of this movie, I was just like, oh, she's traumatized. Like, like, this is somebody who's been through something. So you're like, okay, so this is current now, and like she's traumatized or whatever. So this seems normal. But by the time we get to the end, it does seem a little like more off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think is another really cool part of the movie where when the camera crew that was interviewing Sarah the whole time decides to go to the Abaddon Hotel and kind of see what's going on. I really liked the choice of, as they're walking through the hotel, it cuts back to like the clips of all five of them like standing together and like having fun.
Yeah. Oh yeah. When they stop in certain places, like when they see the bar, then it shows the still of them, like, when they're hanging out drinking and stuff.
Yeah. Like that. To me, that was just a really good scene, and it was a way of kind of adding, as much as you can to a found footage horror movie. It was a great way to sort of add this like emotional weight to it, of like, yeah, none of these characters made it out. And then you see Sarah get beaten to death by Paul, and then Paul kills himself.
Yes.
And again, super brutal. What he beats her with something.
I
Was it
couldn't tell.
camera?
I just kind of saw his head going.
Yeah. And
Could
then
have been camera. I don't.
I think it was the camera. It looked like it was the camera.
Yeah.
But then after she dies, and I'm assuming one of the creatures in the black shrouds like dragged her like off screen.
Yeah. Someone grabbed her because then he picked. I couldn't see what he picked up, but it was
Just a
something
broken piece of a bottle, like a broken bottle end.
Yeah, he just was like, "You goodbye."
Mm-hmm. And all these characters struggle too. It's never a quick death. It's like the camera just holds on Paul like gasping for life until he just dies.
Now, one of the things before we get to this absolute ending here, was that during the interview, the reason they go to the hotel is because they're interviewing her, and they get towards the end, and she's like, "Hey, I'm a little tired. I just want to." She's like, "Can I get a break or whatever?" She's like, "If you need to find me, She's like, "Oh, it's fine. I'm just gonna go back to my room. You need to find me. I'm in 2C." When they leave to go to the hotel to check it out, they go to the front desk and they're like, "Hey, if the girl from 2C is looking for us, like, we'll be back in like an hour." Like, our rooms don't have letters. And she's like, "It said 2C, right?" She's like, "Yeah," but she's like, "All right, maybe she was confused. Like, what room is Sarah Havel staying in?" And the lady looks it up and she's like, "Yeah, nobody's here with that name." And so, "Oh, maybe she's staying under a different name." And they bolted. They went to the hotel. And we're going through this, and we're getting the little clips. They're stopping at the places and in the hotel, and then getting the still shots of the crew being real happy. And they're like, "Oh, there's the stairs," and they go upstairs. And they get to the stairs, and there is a door with the room number 2C on it. And this cameraman's he's got the right. He's like, "Yeah, fuck this." And this lady is like, "Nope, we're going in there." And they go in, and Sarah's sitting on the bed and not facing them. And this woman is like, "Hey, Sarah, you good? You all right? Everything okay?" She turns around, bam, got that messed up face from getting killed. And then the camera starts glitching out, and everyone's freaking, and then that's it.
That's how it ends.
That's how it ends. I fucking love this movie.
It's so good.
Two good movies in a row, Mark. Two good ones in a row. We started off pretty rocky.
Oh man, this movie is so good, and it is just it's one of these things of when found footage is effective, it is like holy shit scary.
Absolutely.
Because this movie is just it builds this atmosphere. It has these characters that you like. It's for the most part pretty believable. And we'll get into some of its faults in a minute, but it's just it's so scary, and it's so bleak without actually coming off as bleak as it actually is.
It's very bleak without coming off like the Poughkeepsie tapes.
Yeah,
because man,
that's a bleak movie. Or what's the other one? Is it Lake Mungo? That's like the ending is just heartbreaking.
Good too. That's a good one too.
Found footage, man. Love found footage. But it's one of those movies where while you're watching it, it's just so good at one, keeping you entertained, like keeping you glued to the screen, and it's so effective at scaring you that it is one of those movies that after you finish it, you might be afraid to kind of turn off the lights for a little bit.
Yeah, I agree.
And I like all the characters, which for horror movies in general, especially nowadays, is not easy. And especially inside the found footage genre is not easy. But it's like I loved these characters. I thought, the five that were, the five people of Hell House LLC were they were just awesome. Like I liked all of them. I was really sad when not like really sad, but I was upset when they all died. Um,
Yeah.
Especially when like Alex, Paul, and Sarah all died. I was like, these are like, why are you staying? Like, why is this camera not moving?
Yeah.
Like it gets to a point where it's like I don't want to see Alex like just hanging there swinging. I don't want to see Paul's throat like gushing blood, but it is just saying like it's hammering. It is going to kind of hammer it in because for so much of the movie, it's pretty tame, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just got some good effective atmosphere and some just scary fucking moments.
Genuinely scary. Like they didn't go out of their way to make a scary moment. It's all seemed natural, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
I fucking can't say enough good things about this movie. I love it so much.
Yeah.
It's a favorite. Definitely a favorite.
Um,
So much so that I don't remember the sequels at all. Like I think I remember the second one. The third one, I think I checked out.
I like the sequels, but I fully understand the dip in quality between
Oh yeah.
the first one is the best, second one is okay, third is it could have been good, but it's
Yeah.
like their ideas were bigger than their wallets in that
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, but so what would you say would be kind of like your favorite things about this movie?
Um,
Or even like your favorite like scenes or something?
just about everything in this movie is fantastic. I really like in between how they cut in the lore of the hotel, which we talked about earlier. That really really helped it along, and that's something that I liked about Blair Witch, where before you really saw the footage, they talked to all those people in the town, and you kind of got a sense of what they were going there for
Mhm.
and the lore around it, which is extremely helpful. And like I think I said it in the last episode that stuff that gets your imagination going, because your imagination is the worst place, because they can put things on screen to scare you, but nothing can scare you like your own imagination if you let it. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like your own ideas and your own pictures of things that people explain are scarier than probably what somebody could come up with in a movie.
Oh yeah.
So I love it. It's that stuff was super effective. I don't know if there was really I had really any gripes with this movie.
I just have one.
Well, shoot, let's hear it.
The only problem I really have with this movie, and I had it with most found footage movies, is the glitch effect. It's just not needed. Like you don't need it. The movie is so scary by itself that like when when Sarah's, lying on the ground or whatever, and she's, about to get dragged away, it's like you don't need the glitch effect. It looks scary. When Paul's running around the corner and the clown statue or whatever is kind of following him, it's like you don't need the glitch. That's terrifying.
I think I think the glitch was in use was it was effective. I mean, you knew some shit was going down.
Yeah.
But the glitch was kind of like they weren't using a glitch to like, okay, let's say you're watching a VHS movie. They're adding the glitch.
Well,
They're adding it for some sort of effect. In
that's the
this
problem that
movie,
I have with.
it's in this movie. It's to let you. It's like okay, there's something sinister in the room. You know what I mean? Like
Kinda,
how they walked throughout the house and everything was fine, but if they went in the basement and shit, it was like fucking up.
but it wasn't even like that in the beginning of the movie. It wasn't until
No, it wasn't. Yeah, it was later. It started happening later in the movie for sure.
it wasn't until after Paul basically went like comatose that the glitch effect started happening.
Okay,
And
I
so
see what you mean.
yeah, so it's just it's the thing of like, and in the second and the third movies, the glitches get really bad, and it's pretty obvious that those glitches are used to sort of hide the bad effects.
Yeah, okay.
Um, and I mean, I understand that they're there to sort of set a tone, but I just, and especially in a movie that's this good, it's like you guys didn't need the glitch effects. The movie was super scary, super effective on its own. Like it was just one of those things that like that's be it's the thing that keeps it from being like a perfect 10, I guess.
Okay. All right, I see what you're saying. I see your point.
But I would give it a 9.5 out of 10.
Oh, setting the bar. I'm gonna give this a fucking 10, dude. I fucking love this movie, glitches and all.
I mean, it's a movie
I
that
get it. Like if it would have been recurring throughout the movie and not just in the last like 20 to 30 minutes, like I get what you're saying. I feel like if it was set where it was like they went in the basement the first time and you like get a little bit of a glitch out. Like, I mean, I know later in the movie it got like increased, but
yeah,
like, what if you just like they were just going down like, hey, let's go check out the basement and it just did this little glitch like real quick. Like then you would know. You like, okay, this is like later in the movie when it does it, you're like, oh, okay.
right, yeah.
Yeah. But man, they really they now that I think of it, they really put the glitch on in that last half of the movie. But I'm
Yeah.
giving it 10. I love this movie so very much.
Yeah, I mean it's still such a good movie. It's definitely one of the scariest just movies I've probably ever
Yeah.
watched, you know.
I gave this a 10 and I don't even know, I'm not even sure this is my favorite found footage movie, but it's fucking up there.
It's not my favorite, but it's definitely up there. And actually on that note,
Oh,
why
you want
don't
to get into it?
why don't we just go into
Let's get
essentially,
into it.
let's let's do our top 5 found footage movies.
I
What
feel
if,
like that I feel like that we might have a couple of the same.
we probably will, but let's start from like 5 being fifth favorite, first being one
Oh,
favorite.
mhm.
So what's your 5th favorite found footage movie?
I don't know if you've seen this. I mean, I talked about it on the last episode too. The last broadcast, which was I believe was made a year before Blair Witch Project.
Mhm.
Somewhat similar. This one was about it was about the Pine Barrens, and it did do like this sort of like faux mockumentary type deal where it was like interviews cut with footage. Um, it's 5 because I really liked it, and then the end was good, but it was kind of killed it for me also.
Mhm.
Um, it's absolutely worth a watch. Um, but it does kind of suffer. The end is it kind of, I don't know, it tarnishes it a little bit, but it's not like totally a waste.
Yeah,
But yeah, that's
definitely.
my number 5. It was I liked being the movie guy when I was younger, especially during that time. Uh to where everybody's Blair Witching it up, and I was like, "Hey, look at this movie that came out before the Blair Witch, huh?"
Mm. Oh yeah.
Trying to be that guy, but not as good as the Blair Witch, but definitely it's worth seeing for sure.
Um, so my number 5 is, we've mentioned it a couple of times, is the Poughkeepsie tapes.
Okay, all right.
Uh,
That's not on my list, but
it's
it's in there somewhere.
it's another mockumentary sort of thing. And I think one of the reasons why it's number 5 and not higher is because it is not a movie I can watch a lot.
No,
It's not a very rewatchable movie. It's tough. And
tough watch.
yeah, and it's like it's not even it's a movie about essentially like a serial killer who kidnaps one woman and like causes her to almost have like Stockholm syndrome.
Mhm.
And I mean, there's some scenes in there that are just like ripped right from a nightmare. Um, and it's got glitch effects, but it all just feels like very old raw footage for the most part.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, number 5, Poughkeepsie Tapes. It's a pretty divisive movie too because there's a lot of people that say it's just boring and nothing happens, and then there's the other section of people that are like, this movie is disgusting and scary and hard to watch. So I would say watch it. It's definitely worth a watch, but
I mean, I feel like that, but I feel like I don't know. You got to be on one to fucking revisit it. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
it's really tough.
it's tough.
There's
It's pretty heartbreaking.
there's nothing happy. There's nothing happy in this movie. Like there's no fucking silver lining. There's no
No,
fucking light at the end of the tunnel in this one. Oh yeah, number 4 here.
number 4.
Oh, number 4. You know what? I'm gonna give it to Taking of Deborah Logan.
That's a good movie.
A fucking sleeper that came out. Another one that came out of nowhere, dude, and the pacing of this movie, it will make you think this movie is about taking care of a senior citizen with Alzheimer's, and then it quickly fucking turns on you and becomes one of the creepiest things I've ever seen, dude. It's so good. I love
Oh
it.
yeah.
I love it. I love it.
It definitely starts off a little bit of like a slow burn, but once it kicks in, it fucking kicks.
I gotta look at my list. I wrote it down, but then I was trying to go off the top. So, what's your
My number 4.
Yeah.
My number 4 is actually Grave Encounters. Um, I I love Grave Encounters. I think it's just a fun found footage movie. Um, it knows how to be it knows how to be creepy. It knows how to be atmospheric. It knows how to play with the found footage genre in a sense that like it's basically a mock of like Ghost Adventures and stuff like that. Um, and it's this like ghost hunting crew stuck inside this asylum, and it's a little slow. I will say that not too much happens, but it's also one of those movies that like something is always happening. It's just very like subtle.
Right.
Until you get to the end, and of course everything starts going crazy like most of the movies get.
Yeah.
So number 3.
Number 3. My number 3 is gonna be the WNUF Halloween special. Yes. Okay, so what originally put me onto this was I'd been hearing about it, I read about it. It's essentially this love letter to the 80s. Okay. It all looks like it's shot on video because what it is a news broadcast and it's on Halloween, and there's the news people in the newsroom, and there's a newscaster like on location at this house where like messed up things have happened, and they're like doing a broadcast from the house because it's Halloween, and the guy's like outside talking and getting people amped up, and he's like gonna go in and go through the house and this and that, and while they're telling this story, it's literally like you're watching the newscast because it is complete with fucking 80s commercials, dude, that are out of control, that just take you back. It's insane, dude. I love it so much. It might be on Shudder, it might be on Prime. I mean, I feel like it's been on both, or it could still be there. I know one of the, like, Vinegar Syndrome has like other labels that that the fuck they have other labels that they'll sell their product to, and there's one of their sub labels just put it out on Blu-ray. It doesn't really matter because it's fucking shot and it looks exactly like a fucking 80s tube TV. So it is a fucking wonderful movie. Everything, you feel like you're like transported back, and you're like, man, what hokey news and this and that, and then you get the scaries, and it delivers. It fucking delivers. I love it.
Okay. Okay. It's called WNUF Halloween.
WNUF Halloween special, yeah. Matter of fact, I would look right fuck now to see if it's on it and for you to watch it. What's your number 3?
Well, so my number 3 is actually Hell House LLC.
Okay.
But I do want to give almost like an honorable mention to I think I mentioned it last week. This movie called Butterfly Kisses.
Yeah, you did talk about that.
Which again, I'm just gonna say is just it is like the smartest found footage horror movie I think I've ever seen. It's not the scariest, but it's just so original, and it's such a good idea. It's about this guy who tries to make a documentary about this like urban legend that he hears about, and is trying to get support, and no one wants to support him, even though the urban legend like turns out being real. And it's just so clever. If you're a fan of the found footage genre, and if you, again, it's not the scariest, but it's just so clever and it's so original that I would say it's worth a watch. But Butterfly Kisses, I'm pretty sure it's on Prime, and I think it's on Tubi also.
I'm gonna have to check it out. I've never even heard of that.
Tubi has a lot of found footage movies, actually.
It is on Shudder.
Okay.
In 1987, a TV news team tried to contact spirits in a haunted house, but something went wrong. 3 decades later, the recording of the spooky special has finally surfaced, and viewers can now see what really went on that fateful night, complete with the commercials. What is it? What else does it say? And you'll think Grindhouse meets Paranormal Activity, and you'll know what to expect from this hilarious parody of found footage horror. Anyone who watched 80s TV is sure to laugh at the scarily accurate fake ads for video rental stores, psychic hotlines, and satanic panic books. Watch if you dare. It's good, dude. Matter of fact, at some point before this month runs out, I gotta watch it again. I watched it last couple of years. It came out in 2013.
Okay, so it's not even that old.
It was made. I mean, I think it was made then, but I don't think I saw it up to like maybe 2-3 years ago. Yeah, maybe.
Number 2.
Number 2 is I'm gonna give it to the Blair Witch.
Solid.
I mean, it's the granddaddy of them all.
Oh yeah.
It's like I would say earlier, it's one of those movies that leaves a lot to your imagination, which is the scariest thing of all. And when they explain, they're doing the interviews and they're talking about the lore and the myth, and they tell the story, and then the end, and that guy standing in the fucking corner, I cannot tell you how badly a guy standing facing a corner scared the fucking shit out of me. I said it. I already said it. I was 18 when this movie came out, and I couldn't go. Every time I moved around my house, I had to turn the light on.
It's scary. I mean,
It's fucking scary. And then my number one is Hell House. So
my number two is I mentioned it last week again, is a Gunjam Haunted Asylum.
I knew this was gonna come up.
Dude, when I tell you that, in my own humble opinion, that is like the scariest found footage movie I have ever seen. Is Gunjam Haunted Asylum, and of course, it's not American, because Americans kind of miss the mark a lot of times when it comes to horror. But this is I can't remember if it's Korean or Japanese, and I feel like it kind of like an asshole for forgetting. But
I don't remember either.
yeah, the movie is about.
I've definitely seen this movie.
The movie is about a group of like young adult teenagers, and they break into this haunted asylum to do like a webcast or like a web stream, so that they can get to, I think it's like 1 million views or something, and it can get monetized. That's the whole premise. Super simple premise. Everything revolves around just the fact that this asylum is so scary. And the last like 20 minutes of this movie is nonstop, like terrifying, nonstop, like just super psychological too. Like it's trippy. Yeah, just Gunjam Haunted Asylum. I saw it on Prime. I don't know if it's still up there or not. I know it's on Tubi, and it's terrifying. If you're someone that doesn't mind subtitles, watch it. It's just so good. You don't even really need to watch it with subtitles. It's just so scary. Like, it's fine.
Dude, I have to give that another watch. I did watch it once, and I don't know why, but I don't really remember it. I do remember watching it because for a while they kept putting these fucking links on like Facebook or whatever, like the scariest movie ever on Netflix. Like they do that every couple of years where they pick another movie that's on Netflix and call it the scariest movie. I remember not buying into it because there was some fucking movie they said was the scariest movie ever, and it's on Netflix, and I started watching it, and I was like 30 minutes in, and this movie's fucking dumb. But I do remember I did watch it. I just don't remember much about it, and I'm gonna have to go back and watch it again for sure.
Oh my god, like, oh my god, watching that shit at like 2 a.m. with like all the lights off on my TV, and my TV, so it's just like watching that shit. I'm just like, oh my god, no. It's horrifying.
It's like your TV is like an extension of our friendship.
All right. So what did you say your number one was? Was Hell House?
It was Hell House. It was Hell House, yeah.
My number one is House is October Built, which I said last week. It's just like, again, as I said last week, it's just a good movie. It's a great story. There's no glitch effects. And the acting is great, the scares are great. It's not the scariest, but it's just a great movie.
Yeah, it doesn't get it. I think it like lulls you in. It has a very good pacing. And it lulls you in. It's like, oh, these people are just going to these little haunts, and they stick things. It's kind of like Hell House. They stick things in there to be like, oh, that's not supposed to be there, or what the fuck was that? And then it gradually leads you in until they smack you with the ending, it's perfect. It's a really good movie. I mean, obviously we talked so much about it last week.
Oh yeah.
Great movie, dude. Perfect. Fantastic.
So I don't know. I think that might be it for this episode. I'm not.
What do we got next week? What are we doing next week?
Next week we got the movie that I've been waiting for. Lords of Salem, dude.
Oh yes, dude! I'm so hyped. I'm so hyped. I actually have this. I actually have it digital. Like I have a fucking whole Movies Anywhere library, and I have digital.
Oh my god. Okay. I love Lords of Salem. All the Rob Zombie haters can suck it because this movie is so good.
Hot on the heels of Sherry Moon Zombie playing Lily Munster, baby. Woo! I bet this movie's gonna be a fucking masterpiece, dude. It's gonna be everybody's fucking pissing on it. It's gonna be a masterpiece. Rob Zombie loves the Munsters, bro. This is gonna be fire.
Yeah, I mean, we'll save that for next week because I'm sure that'll just be a Rob Zombie centric episode. But yeah, Lords of Salem next week. Thanks everyone for watching. Anyone that's watching. Chris, you got anything else to say?
Follow us on Twitter. Fucking like and share everything. Get us out there. I feel like we got a decent amount of people watching, but we could always use more. I mean, twitter.com/the film section. Go there, follow the page. I post the links. You know what I mean? I'm always open to feedback. I mean, I think we both are. But feedback, questions, comments, anything, dude. I don't care if you fucking try to troll me, bro. It's something. Until next week, we will be back with Lords of Salem. Rob Zombie, baby.